What's going on, guys? We're back with another how to do stuff video, and today we are looking at the best settings for recording your gameplay footage on a Mac. Let's get into it.
It's Mainey.
Okay, so we have a blank OBS project here, not really a project, but a profile here. And as you can see, we are running OBS 32.1.1 at the time of recording. That is the latest version. Just to show you guys, if I go up to check for updates, you will see that we are up to date at 32.1.1. So I'm not sure if there's going to be any changes in the future. At the time of recording, these are the best settings that you can use to record your gameplay footage on a Mac. Now, if you're anything like me, then you are one, if not all of these three things: a gamer, a content creator, and your primary workstation is a Mac. And if you're like me, you've also searched up countless videos on what the best settings are and found different and outdated information at every step of the way. Well, this video is going to be no different, except this is the answer. The problem is that a lot of people, they don't do a lot of trial and error, and they find something that quote unquote works. Doesn't work the best it could, but then proceed to share that information anyway. The other problem is that not everybody has the same Mac. So I'm gonna go straight ahead and tell you, if you are running an Intel Mac, these settings are not for you. If you are running an M1 Mac, these settings may strain your computer. If you are running an M2 Mac or beyond, whether it's the base, Pro, or Max chip, or even Ultra chip, not only will these settings work for you, but you will get flawless recordings. Okay, let's carry on. So once we go into OBS and we go to preferences, we're going to be looking at a few tabs here. The first one we're going to be looking at is the output tab. So the first thing you want to do is you want to come to the output tab and you want to change this to advanced, not simple. Then you want to come over to the recording tab, because that's what we are talking about today, recording. And then for type, you want to leave this on standard. For your recording path, you want to make sure that you choose an adequate path for yourself. This will default to your movies folder, but you can go ahead and set this to wherever you want, including external SSDs like I do in my other profile. Now, if we head over to the recording format, you will notice that a lot of other creators, they will tell you to use .mkv, Matroska or Matroska, however you say it. The reason why they tell you to use this is because if your OBS crashes and you've got maybe the MOV or MP4 selected, you will end up with a corrupted file, meaning you've just lost all your footage. That is bad. This is why most people will tell you to use this. But there's a fundamental problem with this. Once you finish recording, you then have to go and remux this video. And if your recording is like over an hour long, like a lot of mine are, you will find that this really hinders your workflow. Maybe right after recording, you want to quickly get that footage into DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro, whatever your preferred editing software, and do your edits and export really, really fast. Not with MKV. With MKV, you need to wait for that remux to be done. Now, fragmented MOV does the exact same thing as .mkv in the sense of protecting your files in the case of a crash, except you skip the entire remuxing process, meaning you can get up and running in the editing software of your choice right away. Next up, the video encoder. Do not choose any of these Apple VT ones. You will be dealing with a lot of macro blocking. You ever seen all that blocky, pixelated stuff when you're doing high movement on games that are like third-person games or even first-person shooters? That's what you're going to be dealing with. Set it to X264. Your audio encoder, core audio AAC is the default. I would suggest you to leave it at that. Your audio tracks, now this is a whole different video. This is a whole different video. And if you want me to go in depth with this, I definitely can. But this is a whole different video, so I won't be touching that today. We're going to leave the rescale output as disabled for now. We're going to come back to this one. And then we're going to scroll past custom muxer settings and scroll past automatic file splitting. Next, rate control. Possibly the single most important part of this whole video, the rate control. Choose CRF. Bring this number down to 18. This is your quality. The lower the number, the higher the quality. But keep this at 18 because going any lower won't really result you in higher quality. It will just result you in a vast increase of file size and also a vast increase of the resources your Mac needs. Keyframe interval. Even though the default is 0, do not leave it at 0. Leave it at 2. Your CPU usage, leave this at very fast. Profile, high. Tune, none. And now we are on to possibly the second most important part, X264 options. No one knows what this means. Everybody leaves this blank. I'm here to tell you what this means and also what to put in here. Every option that you put in here needs to be separated by a space. So that's exactly what we are going to do. So the first one we are going to put in is bframes equals 2. Now, you'll notice that with other video encoders, which we won't get into because I don't want to confuse the video, but you will notice that you have an ability to choose bframes or not. With the X264, with the rate control of CRF, you do not have that ability. So with these X264 options, we are manually putting that ability in, and we're putting in bframes equals 2. So what are bframes and what does this string mean? Bframes are bidirectional frames, and bidirectional frames are one of 3 of the different types of frames that there are. There are also iframes and p-frames. We won't get into those, but we are focusing on the bidirectional frames. These are the smart frames. They look at both the frame before them and the frame after them to calculate the most efficient way to store data. By setting the bidirectional frames, or the bframes, to 2, we are effectively telling the X264 encoder, you are allowed to use up to 2 bframes in a row between your I and P frames. So why 2? This is the Goldilocks number for high quality recording, and the benefit is that bframes are much smaller than p-frames. By allowing 2 of them, you are significantly reducing the file size without losing visual quality. The encoder is basically saying, I can see where this pixel was and where it's going to be, so I'll just calculate the middle ground. So what's the logic? If you set this to 0, your file size would be massive because the encoder would be forced to use less efficient p-frames for every single movement. And of course, if you set this to more than 2, like 5 or 10, well, the problem is the more bframes you use, the harder the CPU has to work to predict the motion. So just use 2. This is the sweet spot. Let's leave this at 2. So now we're going to do a space and we're going to put in PSY, so psy-rd equals 1.0:0.00. What the hell is this? Well, this part here actually stands for psychovisual rate distortion. It's pretty much the artistic director of your encoder. While the other settings focus on the math of compression, the psy-rd part focuses on how the human eye actually perceives a video. So let's break down the numbers part. As you can see, we have 1.0:0.00, blah, 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 blah. What does this mean? Well, the 1.0 is the strength. This tells the encoder how much it should prioritize keeping the complex textures like film grain, grass, or the fine details in the game, which is what we're after, rather than smoothing them out to save space. A value of 1 is a very healthy amount of sharpness that prevents the video from looking plastic or mushy. The 0.00, which is the trellis, this is a secondary psychovisual optimization. In most recording scenarios, leaving this at 0.00 is actually preferred because it avoids a specific type of digital blur, which can happen when the encoder tries to be too smart with small blocks of pixels. Video encoders are lazy by nature. They want to make things smooth because smooth surfaces are easy to compress. Without the psy-rd, the encoder might see a dark background or a slightly textured UI element and decide to average the colors to save bits. This results in banding or a loss of texture. So it's a good thing that we have this as part of our string. The next part of our string is rc-lookahead equals 40. So what does this actually do? The RC stands for rate control, which you can also see here. By setting it to 40, you're telling OBS to buffer 40 frames of the video in the background before it actually encodes them. Here's the logic. At 60 frames per second, 40 frames is about 0.6 seconds of footage. The encoder looks ahead at the 40 frames to see what's coming next. Is there a sudden explosion in the game? Is a bright white menu about to pop up on your Mac? And what happens is, because it knows the stress that is coming, it can shift its bitrate allocation before the frame actually hits. This prevents bitrate spikes and that annoying blockiness that usually happens during the first few frames of a high motion scene. We really want to avoid that because nobody wants to watch that at all. So why 40? So the default that we use, very fast, over here, well, that preset is actually much lower, around 10 to 20. By bumping it to 40, you're actually giving the B frames, the ones that we just discussed, way more information to work with. The more frames the encoder can see, the more accurately it can place those B frames to save space while keeping the image crisp. And of course, we got one more for you, and this one is going to be weightp equals 2. And what does this one mean? Well, we previously discussed 3 different types of frames. We have the I frames, the P frames, and the B frames. This is to do with the P frames. If B frames are the smart middle ground frames, then using weightp is the tool that makes sure those frames don't flicker or pulse when the brightness of your video changes. So what does weightp stand for? It stands for weighted prediction for P frames. There's 3 different levels that we can choose, hence the number 2. If we chose 0, this means it would be disabled. If we chose 1, it would be simple, only handles fades. If we choose 2, it's smart, it's advanced. This allows the encoder to use weighted references. It doesn't just look at one previous frame, it can look at multiple and calculate how the brightness and color are shifting across the entire scene. So essentially, by setting this to 2, we're giving the encoder a better way to calculate those changes in light, ensuring your transitions and high action moments stay perfectly clear. And this is all we need for the X26 options. Now, I did mention that we was going to do the audio track in another video, but since the number 1 box is already checked, which is also track 1, we're just going to go into the audio tab really quickly and make sure that track 1 is set at the highest bitrate that we can use, which is 320. Like I said, all of this we can go in depth on another video. If you guys want that, just let me know in the comments and I will be sure to get that over to you. But for now, we're just going to set track 1 at 320 and leave everything else at its default. And that's it. So let's go over these settings. So recording path, we're going to choose our own recording path. For recording format, we're going to choose fragmented MOV. Video encoder X264, audio encoder core audio AAC. Audio track we will leave at 1. And like I said, just for now, because we won't talk about this in depth, just for now, go into the audio tab and change this to 320. Leave everything else as is. Rescale output we're going to leave as disabled for now. We are going to get into this. Rate control, CRF 18, keyframe interval 2 seconds, CPU usage preset, very fast, profile high, tune none, and finally in the X264 options, you want to have bframes equals 2, psy-rd equals 1.0 colon 0.00, rc-lookahead equals 40, and weightp equals 2. I'll be sure to leave this entire string in the description for ease of copying and pasting. Okay, so we are done with this page. Let's go ahead and apply these settings. Now we're going to go ahead and go into the audio tab. As I said before, we're not going to get heavily into audio here, but one thing you must know is that most video content's audio is recorded at 48 kilohertz. So set it to this. This will also help you prevent potential mismatches down the line when you go to edit your footage. Next, we're going to head into the video tab. Now, this section is just as important as everywhere else. Your canvas is going to be this thing here, the thing that you are drawing on, the thing that you are creating on, where you're going to put all your overlays, where you're going to put your video capture, your game, everything. This is your canvas. What I would suggest is you match your canvas to your source. What does that mean? Let's say you're capturing Nintendo Switch 2 footage and your Nintendo Switch 2 footage is in 1440p. You want to make sure that your canvas is 1440p, but you're going to notice that you've only got 4K here, 1080p, and 720p. It doesn't give you a 1440p option. Now, my monitor is 1440p, so I play most of my games in 1440p, so I have to manually put this in. And you can. So I know the dimensions for 1440p, 2560 times 1440. And now you'll see that my aspect ratio is still 16:9, and my base canvas is now set to 1440p. Now I want to match my output resolution to my base canvas. I want to make sure that I am recording at 1440p. So if I just do this and click this, it's right there. Now this might not be there for you. Whatever resolution you use, this might not be there for you, but here's what I will suggest. Even if your system is capable of running a game in 4K, set it to 1440p or 1080p. Don't bother playing your game in 4K. If you plan on recording footage. The people that do mistakenly record in 4K only do that because they believe they need to record in 4K in order to upload to YouTube in 4K. Just trust me here. You only need to go as high as 1440p, I promise you. And then whatever your game's FPS is, set it to that. Now, most games are 60 frames per second nowadays, and other games are 30. I would suggest only choosing 60 or 30 for this case. I'm going to go ahead and choose 60. This will give me really nice and smooth gameplay footage. Past 60 FPS is pointless. I could manually put in 120, for example, by choosing integer and then just type in 120. However, this is going to make my recording footage twice as big because it's recording twice as many frames as 60 for pretty much no reason at all. Stick to 60. So let's set this back down to common and stick this on 60. And that's the video tab done. Let's press apply. Now we're going to go back to output, and now we're going to go to the rescale output. Now, why did I go here to rescale rather than do it here? Well, there's a reason why these are on two different pages. You need to look at this page as before recording, and you need to look at this one as after recording or while recording. Even though it doesn't say this, this is pretty much your input. You need to look at this as your input. What am I putting into OBS? I'm putting in Nintendo Switch 2 footage at 1440p and 60 frames per second. This is what you're going to be outputting. This is what's going to be on your recordings. Now, if you want to, you can rescale this with Lanczos down to 1080p footage. What I would not suggest is upscaling this to 4K from OBS. We can save that for the video editing. Once you've recorded your footage and you put it into your favorite editor, whether that's DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro, personally, I'm a DaVinci Resolve guy now after using Final Cut Pro for many years. When you go to export your video, you can export this in 4K, which is actually extremely beneficial to do when it comes to uploading to YouTube later. This effectively triggers YouTube's VP9 encoders and gives you a higher quality upload than anything that's less than 4K would. I don't know the ins and outs of this, but just know it works. So whilst I'm telling you not to record 4K footage with OBS when it comes to your gameplay, I am telling you to upload to YouTube in 4K. I'm going to turn this off because I do not want to downscale to 1080p. And after that, finally, I'm going to come over to advanced. Now, I'm going to leave all of this. We're going to come down to recording. This is where you can tell OBS what to name your file. As you can see, it's giving you all of these different placeholders. And if you hold your mouse over, you can see what they all mean and things like this. So for example, if you had a specific game in mind, so let's just say, for example, I put in Tears of the Kingdom dash, this is going to save this as Tears of the Kingdom and then give me the, the timestamp. If I end up having 100 different recorders of Tears of the Kingdom, then I'd be able to decipher which one is which, just like that. I'm going to hit apply, and that is pretty much it. The next time you decide to record your gameplay footage, it will be flawless. If you guys want to see more videos like this where I explain OBS in depth, whether that's streaming settings or even recording a specific source rather than the entire stream or recording, let me know in the comments. I'm down to do these kind of videos. I really enjoy them and I'm happy to help you guys out wherever I can. And speaking of streaming, you can catch me over on Twitch and check out all of these OBS settings live in action. But if nothing else, guys, I will see you in the next one. Please make sure that you subscribe and like. And until then, peace.